On this episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone, we're going to talk about NWA's first ever seen Kamille wrestle and have an interview that was promised long before the pandemic started. Also, we're going to show you AEW Dark and the surprising of Impact Wrestling with no crowds. So, sit back, relax. Welcome to Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up. 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 Get up, get up.
Hey everybody, welcome to Deleted Wrestle Zone. I'm J-Rod here. Let's get started with a few things I want to say before I start the episode. As you all know, recently there was a referee from the WWF times, recently passed away. I think his name is John Lotz. I think he died due to the he was diagnosed with the coronavirus, and it's real sad for the wrestling world. I hope everybody paid the condolences to his family and friends. Of course, he's been involved in many memorable matches that he's been in as a referee. He will always be remembered for all those. So I think that's about it. And I'm gonna give you guys something that I starting to see. I think right now we're stepping into maybe some wrestling promotions are starting to do what it's been happening since the pandemic began, where wrestling promotions are now doing no crowds. I've been hearing Pro Wrestling Noah has been doing shows. They just did their Global Tag League, which is their annual tag team tournaments for the heavyweight division, kind of like what New Japan do with the World Tag League. But this one's called Global Tag League, and pretty much what's been happening. They AAA, I just saw they had no crowds as well. I just saw Dr. Wagner and another wrestler facing off, and of course now we're seeing Impact Wrestling doing the same thing. I don't know if many promotions that are doing televised either here in the US, down in Mexico, or in Japan, or anywhere else in the world are starting to do the no crowds type of scenario, since we're trying to reduce the spread of the virus. But I'll give you guys my thought about the Impact Wrestling, how it was. But first, let's get started with AEW Dark. Alright, so we're back with AEW Dark now. This one was a very short event. They only had 2 matches. Now, please keep in mind, at the same time as Dynamite happens, they do AEW Dark. So, all their matches have been pre-taped. Basically, it's already been done. They have at least somewhere between till mid-May worth of video. So hopefully it'll last as long. We don't know, but we'll see, because they're still talking about the whole Double or Nothing that might do no crowd scenario, but we'll just wait and see when we get there. So let's get started with the first match they had. So as you all know, not too long ago they signed Anna Joy, who was currently at the Nightmare Factory training under QT Marshall. So this was her official AEW debut. Now, her previous show she did on Dynamite was not actually as a part of the roster. She was, I hate to say the term, jobber, but that's what she was. But her first match was against Penelope Ford. Now, I have to say, this was a really good match. I enjoyed it. It was like, okay, maybe she has more to offer in the women's division, but keep in mind, the women's division in AEW are currently not in the same level. The only current women's division that is highly successful is currently outside of WWE is Impact Wrestling. But yeah, so it was all right. Luckily for this, Penelope Ford did not had Kip Sabian do interference. So basically, it was more of a clean, straight up match. So, but Penelope won the match without the help of Kip Sabian. I'm surprised they haven't gone with the whole thing with Kip going against Cole Cabana after what he said about Kip. Second match was Joe Alonso. If you guys know who he is one of Sammy Guevara's closest friends, and recently he's been duping him or whatever. He had to face against Cody. Yeah, so where's your friendship, Sammy? So, well, of course, you're hanging out with the inner circle. But sadly, Cody won the match on this one. It was more like, I like to say it's a squash match. I'm not sure if Joe Alonso is currently signed with AEW or he's just a jobber. Because keep in mind, right now they've been using sub jobbers throughout the entire time on certain matches, either coming from areas like in Georgia, because that's where they've been filming the AEW Dark, and every other place. So they only had two matches. I say it was a okay event, not as great, but it's okay. So I think that's about it for AEW Dark. So let's move on with the National Wrestling Alliance. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so let's talk about the National Wrestling Alliance. Now, as you all recall, before the pandemic started, we've been getting the whole story about Kamille. I mean, don't get me wrong, she is beautiful and she's really muscular, all that stuff. Not a lot of things have been revealing about her character. All we do know, she doesn't talk. She's dating in real life Tom Latimer, even though he's also playing that. So they're playing the on-screen, off-screen boyfriend, girlfriend type of scenario. But not a lot about Kamille has been more revealing about her, who she is. Now, let's go back when this all happened. Now, the reason Kamille first came about, this was more like the beginning, how she first came into the National Wrestling Alliance. If you all recall in All In, Brandy Rhodes got in the way of Nick Aldis, where he elbowed Cody, but it was about to elbow Cody, but he also elbowed her. And he always believed that the outside shenanigans was the reason he lost the title to Cody. So he made sure he had an insurance policy to make sure none of the shenanigans happened. And Kamille was introduced on the NWA 70 event, which was the rematch between Cody and Nick Aldis. Now, much of that particular match, Kamille was trying to ensure that Brandy doesn't get near Cody. Now, she's being that wife who needs it, but she thinks that's how to say will cost um, Nick Aldis the match, and she's been mostly like that. And then the whole mystery began with her happened on the very first episode of NWA Power, where, or was it the second? I don't remember. Anyway, somewhere in the beginning of NWA Power, where Nick Aldis put his title on the line against Tim Storm, which was Tim Storm said that if he doesn't win, he will stop pursuing the title. And there was a moment where Nick Aldis clotheslined Kamille. Now, Joe Galli, who's just doing his job, wanted to ask her if she's okay. She didn't respond. But they think Nick Aldis was holding her back. But it's not. So basically, she's been trying to find out what has been going on. And then here comes, what's his name? Eli Drake, try to find out what she's saying. And Tom Latimer didn't like what he was saying, telling her to shut up and all this. And then we see Kamille whispers to James Storm before the Into the Fire pay-per-view and all this and that. And then we were promised that she was going to talk. Joe Galli wanted to know what's up with her. And they had her first match. She was against someone named Maddie Max, from what I can tell. Let's call this match a squash match. Basically, she won. Now, Joe Galli wanted to find out more about her. What's her deal? She refuses to talk to him. So basically, she's like that one person who doesn't want to talk. But somehow she got interviewed by someone else, giving her her side of the story. Who is Kamille? What is? I like the story how they're saying that for a long time people have criticized her for being too powerful for her own good. She said when she was played softball, many of the parents felt like they're hurting their girls and all this and all that. Basically, they were always treating her like oh, she's been falsifying herself to look good or whatever. And that's a pretty good story origins about Kamille, and she's not here to make friends or anything. She just wants to destroy everything, all sorts of authority. So she finally spoken on the interview, but not to Joe Galley. But like I said, there haven't been done any tapings. I'm not sure if NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance, are gonna do what every promotion recently we've been seeing with WWE, AEW, now Impact with the no audience. But the thing is, I don't know how they're gonna pursue with that. So hopefully they'll think of something. I know many NWA fans would want to see them come back. So let's just hope and wait to see what's gonna happen down the line. So let's continue on with the show with the next segment, Impact Wrestling. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we're welcome back. So let's talk about Impact Wrestling now. Um, as you all know, ever since the whole pandemic happened, WWE and AEW have been mostly been having no audiences, but AEW has the idea of using their wrestlers to be on ringside. One side we got the heels, one side we have the faces, but they are far apart from each other. That is one good scenario. I like how they're using the space. Um, Unlike WWE, they use a performance center. But when I look at those shows on televised, it's too much space. I feel like they could have just shrunk it more, and it felt like you can still fill up more people, and that's kind of the thing that kind of gets me off a little bit. I don't know if any of you guys felt that way. But like I said, I like how AEW's done it. Now Impact has stepped into the idea of no audiences. But what I did like about the whole setup, everything else was dark except for the ring, the ramp, and the stage. That is exactly a perfect shot. I don't know if anybody has noticed it. It's pretty good. I like it. So kudos to Impact for doing something. I hope we get to see them more often doing that. Now, the this particular show had the pay per view Rebellion. Now, this was supposed to be a pay per view, but now they decided to just throw it on AXS TV. So right now we stepped into week one. The first match started with OVE, Jake and Dave Chris, and Mad Fulton versus Dreamer, Rhino, and Crazy Steve. So we had three people who are the extreme wrestlers, but you have two of the legends of ECW teaming up with a psycho like Crazy Steve. It was a good match. There was some great moments, especially where Crazy Steve did not want to deal with Fulton. We all know that, but Tommy Dreamer would deal with him. So would what's his name, Rhino. But there were some good matches in the moments on this one, and really, Tommy Dreamer, Rhino, and Crazy Steve took the victory on this one, and I was pretty much happy with the idea how that went. And then we had an interview with Eddie Edwards. Now, before we jump into the interview, be noted, right now certain wrestlers were not unable to be there at Impact, much like what's been going on with WWE and AEW. Um, Eddie Edwards was unable to leave Boston because of what's been going on. Certain areas around the country have been on lockdown and cannot get out. And basically, Tessa Blanchard went through the same similar thing. She is currently cannot leave Mexico, where she currently lives with Daga, her real life boyfriend, or should I say her fiance. And basically, uh, Eddie Edwards feels disappointed, but he has to do what's right for not only for himself but for his family. You know, take care of them, because right now you may never know what's going to happen. And then we jump into the interview with Michael Elgin. Now he goes out saying they're making excuses not to face him, and he said that he is sure by the end of Rebellion, which is going to take place the second week, that he will be named as the new Impact Wrestling World Champion. Now, and this is the way I would see it. I'm gonna look at it that they're gonna maybe, just maybe, do the same thing what they did with the Cruiserweight down in NXT. As you all know, Jordan Devlin is the current NXT Cruiserweight Champion. He is currently stuck in Ireland and he cannot leave to put his title on the line. So they decided to do a tournament for an interim NXT Cruiserweight Champion. So this is the way I would see it. The top officials of Impact are going to tell Michael Elgin that he'll be named as the interim Impact World Champion. Now, Michael Elgin will not let that stand. He believes that it doesn't give him the right to be champion because he earned it. He feels like he well deserved it. But the problem is they can't just strip the title from Tessa. That's the way they're going to go. So that's my prediction for that. But we just got to wait and see when that comes around. Now, the next match we had is a triple threat match of the tag teams. We had the Rascals, Wentz and Dez versus Triple XL and versus TJP and Fahabal. This one was an interesting dynamic match. Basically, the Rascals, TJP and Fahabal were not tagging Triple X because these guys are huge. And you don't want to deal with those guys. Basically, you have the Rascals, very athletic, very good with their speed. You got TJP and Fahabal with a different type of dynamic. And then you got Triple XL, AC Romero, and Gary D. Larry D. Two huge guys. So an interesting dynamic of the match. So basically, much of the match they've been avoiding not to tag either at Triple XL, and that to me was pretty smart storyline. Where nope, we're not tagging you guys. But sadly, they got tagged, and there were some times where I thought Triple XL was gonna win, but it didn't go exactly how I thought. It was the Rascals, and we may see them down the line to face the North for the Impact World Tag Team Championship. So we just gotta wait and see on that part. Then we have a message from the North saying that they're happy that they're stuck in Canada because of the whole pandemic that was happening. Like they felt they don't need to be there, but sooner or later they have to be there. Then we had an interview with Willie Mack and Rich Swann. Before that, but now we jump into Willie's match against Ace Austin for the Impact X Division Championship. Now, much of the match was amazing. I didn't expect much. For a moment, I thought that Reno Scum were going to show up and cause Willie Mack the title, but it didn't happen that way. Neither did Rich Swann. It was straight up man to man. Ace Austin doing his tricks, was great. I have to say this was a good match. I enjoyed it. And of course, at the end of the result, we have a brand new X Division champion, and that person is Willie Mack. Now, post match, he was happy. Johnny Swinger shows up, and they act like they think they're still friends, and Mack and Rich were like, the hell is wrong with him? So he said he's going to go to the car, and then they go, well, he gets the car, you and I go that way. So they just abandoned him. It was interesting story. I don't know what's going to happen. Now, we jump in with Kerry Hogan versus Kylie Ray. Now, remember, Kylie Ray just signed a long-term deal with Impact. This was her first pay-per-view match, or should I say her first match in Impact. Yeah, no. Her first pay-per-view match in Impact, but her second match, I think. Much of the momentum was going with Kylie Ray. I have to say she is going to bring some great in-ring work on it, because I know many fans have been hyped because of where she used to work, and now she's here. I have to say she picked the right spot. But she did display to us a lot of what she can do in the ring, with her happy face. But sometimes she can take it serious whenever it needs to be. It was a great match. I have to say I can't wait to see her down the line. Hopefully to become an Impact Wrestling's Knockouts champion. But it was great. I love it. Good match. And then we jump into the main event, which was Sammy Callahan versus Ken Shamrock. Now, this whole story began when Ken Shamrock was named the Impact Hall Hall of Famer, and Sammy attacked him with a fireball on his eyes. And all of a sudden, we don't know what was going on with Sammy. Now, much of the entire match was unsanctioned, so anything goes. Um, there was moments where you see Sammy taking the advantage, you see Shamrock, but yeah. But when they went backstage, OVE shows up. Costs try to get involved, but out of nowhere, Sammy turned his back on OVE. It was still unclear what happened. He attacked Fulton first, and then the Chris brothers. I don't know what's gonna happen next week when, or no, should I say after Rebelling, where OVE are gonna try to find out what was going on with Sammy. Why is he acting this way? Because you got to look at it this way. Ever since Sammy reemerged himself as this hacker, not once he ever mentioned OVE. Not once. It was still unclear what's going on. And Jay Chris thinks that Sammy was waiting for them to give him a signal, but I don't know. I don't know if Sammy feels now that he was held back by OVE, or were it their fault that he lost the title to Tessa. Who knows what the story is? But I get the prediction this is far from over between Sammy and OVE. But much of the remainder of the match continued on outside, and it was a great moment, But sadly, Sammy ended up on the ankle lock by Shamrock. He passed out, and declaring the winner, Ken Shamrock. So he is still the most dangerous man in the business. Now, what do I think of this pay per view? It was good. I enjoyed it. I can't wait to see what's gonna happen in week 2. I know we got the Knockouts division happening. I think that's about it. I'm not sure yet, but the fate of the world title is still unclear, even though Michael Elgin thinks in the back of his mind he will be declared the new champion. But like I said, I predict that they're going to make him the interim champion, and he's not going to like that. I think that's about it, what's happening in Impact. So, that's it for now. Hope you guys like this episode. Hope to hear from you guys soon. So, stand by for more stuff that I'm going to be throwing. Like I said, I have this DWZ discussions where I'm doing the Japanese edition. 3 topics. I'm not going to say what are they, but you'll love them. And then keep tabs on the news updated alerts that I've been throwing. And as for DWZ at the wrestling event, that's going to be on hold for who knows how long, until all we're allowed to go to live shows, even though the independents are non-existent at this point. So I must bid all of you adieu, goodbye, and have a nice day.